All right, bro, we're live. We're in here.
All right, I love it, man. Okay, everybody, welcome to Never Get Too Comfortable NGTC episode 2. Super excited to be talking with you again, bro. Let's start things off with a little booze, though.
Let's go. Only way to do it on the NGTC podcast.
Cheers to episode 2.
Cheers to episode 2, my guy. Thank you for being with me.
All right, so for the first one we're going to talk about, we were actually talking about this on the phone over the week. It's an interesting thing that I think a lot of people struggle with. I know you and I definitely do, because I think this topic has come up like multiple times through our conversations. For other people listening, Manny and I call each other like 3 times a week, so we're always just like talking about random things, sports, whatever. But it also gets into like a lot of insightful things about our lives. Like we talk about really serious things too. But this is one thing that's come up pretty frequently, and that is that we just get really fucking impatient.
Absolutely.
Like with life in general, I don't think it's about the small things, right? Like I don't think it's necessarily about the small things. It's more about like the bigger picture in life. I think it's really easy to have goals that you've set for yourself and you feel like you need to be there now. For example, like a lot of life goals that people set out to do, those aren't things you can accomplish like really quickly, right? Like when you're talking about like building your career, maybe owning a home, whatever it might be that you have like goals set for you, those things aren't things that happen overnight unless you get like really lucky or like something great, an amazing opportunity kind of comes out of nowhere. These are things that take like a lot of time, and you got to be consistent and work on those things over like years. I know personally, I get really impatient sometimes because I think about my goals, but at the same time, every time you and I have talked about this, when I sort of zoom out of my life, I realize that I'm way further along than I thought I was, or I'm way further along for how impatient I feel. Like obviously I'm on track or even past that, but for some reason I just get impatient with where I am in life. I think it's really easy to compare yourself to other people, or it's also easy to like move the bar, because there's things that I've accomplished that I've always wanted to accomplish, and then once I had them, I don't even feel like I celebrated that much, and instead I've just like moved the bar onto the next thing. So something we want to talk about, because both of us didn't really have a solution when we talked about this earlier this week. I don't think we ever have. We just had like ideas, and I don't think we've always executed them. Like we've had ideas about how we can be less impatient, but we've never really, I don't think I have made like a really strong effort towards becoming more patient with my life. And so I thought it would be cool to talk about this on the pod and maybe make some goals together about what we can do to do that. How do you feel about all that?
I mean, yeah, it makes sense. And I mean, you hit on a lot of like really solid points. And it's actually kind of like nice, or not nice, but it's like therapeutic to hear that I'm not the only one that feels that way. Like when you were talking, I was like, this is literally how I feel. Like everything you said, I 100% related to you. So it's nice knowing that. And I've realized that like a lot of, not whether it's patience, whatever it may be, majority of the time, you may feel like you're the only one in the world that feels that way or has that problem, but chances are, most everyone feels the same way you do. And I mean, that can sometimes, at least for me, make me feel a little bit better, if that makes sense. Because I know it is surmountable. And sometimes even that I'm just maybe being a little bit more dramatic, or my anxiety is being more dramatic than it really needs to be. Because like you said, like you feel like you're going nowhere, or the tires are spinning, but a lot of times you're at least on track, if not even, beyond track, like to reaching your goals. So I think it's just really hard day in and day out. It's hard to see the progress, but when, it's just like compound interest per se, of your efforts, that you are kind of going in that right direction and whatnot.
Yeah. I thought it'd be really cool to like come up with a few ideas about how we can be more patient in our lives. And the one thing that I think is like this goes along with the topic we were just talking about of like, sometimes we are actually progressing, but we're just not paying attention because we have like this one, or we have a few goals that are like very lofty and they're farther down the line and they take time, right? So I thought it'd be really cool to set like smaller goals for ourselves that lead up to that. That way we have more things to celebrate. But also on top of that, I think you have to celebrate. Like to start, like 100%. I think I'm so bad at that in life. Like I didn't even go to my college graduation. Like this was pre-COVID. Like I don't know. I'm not good at like celebrating and like embracing the idea of like accomplishing something. I don't know why that is. But
yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean to cut you off, but I mean it makes sense. I forget where I read it, but I read where it's like celebrating, not even like achieving something. And this is even more important if it's like a big lofty goal. Like say it's like graduate college. Okay, that's going to be a minimum of probably like 4 years. Do you really want to wait 4 years of grinding before you celebrate? So it's just like kind of like they said, the same way you should break down your goals into, you know, more trackable whatever things. You should also like break down your celebration. You shouldn't wait till you're completely done to celebrate. You should, you know, celebrate when, I don't know, 3 months in and you're still on track, celebrate, you know what I'm saying? 6 months in, you're still on track, celebrate again, you know what I'm saying? And then maybe at the end, when you've reached your goal, you can have some really massive, crazy celebration. But I did read somewhere where they said that like celebration or celebrating and, you know, yourself, your accomplishments, others, is really important in remaining consistent. And so I definitely think celebrating is important, but I do believe you mentioned that you like have a hard time celebrating. Um, I kind of do too, and I feel like I wonder if that stems from both of us coming from like low income families where it's like you don't want to like spend for that celebration or whatever it may be. So you kind of just rarely, if ever, celebrate anything. So I don't know how you feel on that, but that's kind of like what came into my mind.
I think that makes sense. You learn from your parents, right? Like my family, we did
Exactly.
celebrate certain things. Like we always celebrated birthdays, and we still do. So my family, we never went out for dinner, which is kind of wild to think about for me now because like I'm like there's so many times where I get off work and I'm just like, fuck, I need some food. I'm just gonna go to this random ass place and I'll drop like a decent amount of money on food, right? Which just seems totally normal. But my family growing up, the only time we went out for dinner at like an actual restaurant rather than like fast food or something was for birthdays. So we did it like 5 times a year. But outside of that, we never celebrated. Like we celebrated holidays, of course, like Christmas, whatever, but we didn't like celebrate individual accomplishments so much. I don't think we ever really did that. And then we also never went on vacation. My family, we never went on a vacation. So that's one of the reasons I'm so bad at taking vacations. Like I had like 200 hours at PTO when I left my other job because I don't know. I don't really know how to do it. And now I've been a little bit better about it. Like I know you and I have done 2 vacations together the past year. But yeah, I need to get better at celebrating. It can even be something small, right? Like going to a restaurant I've been wanting to go to for a while with some friends, just go out for a drink, whatever it is, for like a smaller goal. I need to learn how to set those smaller goals also. Like, for example, the reason I didn't go to my graduation in college was because I was like, oh, I'm going to grad school in a couple of years. So why do I care? Like, I'm just going to be back in school. So I just didn't go. But that's crazy. Like I spent 4 years and I worked my ass off in the library every night till midnight or more. Like I dedicated my life to my studies at that school. And then after, 4 years, I didn't even celebrate, which is insane to me now. But at the time, it made so much sense to me. I was like, oh, I don't want to celebrate because I'm just going to go back to school. So let's both work on that for sure. What do you think is the best way of like breaking down a large goal?
Before I answer that question, it sounds like we kind of gotta do something extravagant and something fucking crazy to celebrate college, even if it is like you graduating college, even though it is like 2 years delayed. Hey, better late than never. So
Wow.
That's what I'm kind of learning.
When I come to Dallas,
from
are we
this
doubling down?
conversation,
Are we
my
doing my birthday and college
Bro,
celebration? Are we doubling down when I
that
come to
sounds
Dallas?
like alcohol poisoning for a week straight. So that's
I'm
the
okay
type of
with it.
celebration. Let's go, bro.
I'm okay with it. Let's do
No,
it.
I'm okay. Like that was to be a joke, but also like serious. Like after this podcast, let's talk about that shit. Anyways, to your point. Sorry, what was your question?
I was saying, like, what's a good way of breaking down a goal? I feel like you're better at this than me. Like, we've talked about this before, where you're much better at like goal setting and things like that. I'm much more like I'm all out. Like, I have this one main goal and I'm just all out for it. And I'm okay with that. Like, I can be very consistent with my effort, but I think I struggle with the idea of like breaking things down well. But I know you're really good at that. So I'm just curious, like, when you're approaching like making small goals, creating a path towards something, like, how do you like to break things down?
I think it's just like what you just said, like break it down into trackable. Like say like my goals, just to throw something out there, like 2 years from now. So maybe like every 3 months, I track it. Like for example, like let's just say money, so it's easy math. If it's like save $100,000, so it's like every 3 months, If I want to save $100,000 in a year, let's just say that, then it's like in 3 months I can check. I would probably need like, what's the easy math? I don't know, $8,000 or some shit like that. I don't know. I'm probably wrong, but regardless, is as long as I'm hitting the the marks of being on pace for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, um, I can celebrate because I'm gonna hit my goal if I keep doing that. So why not celebrate? So I would celebrate at 3 months if I'm on track. I would celebrate at 6 months if I'm on track, and you get the point. So on and so forth. Um, and I feel like that would definitely help rather than just waiting a whole year, or even more times than not, it's longer than a year.
Right.
Whether it's college, some ambitious goal, a business, it's usually more than a year, your end goal. And that's even more so important to celebrate and just breaking down and making sure you're on track at all these checkpoints. Because as long as you're hitting your checkpoints through the months, you're going to hit your goal. The only thing that matters is time. It's
Yeah.
literally just being patient and waiting for time to pass at that point. So yeah, I would just say just having checkpoints with yourself, and if you're and being honest with yourself, and if you're doing both those things, then bro, go out. I mean, yeah, go out, party, go on a vacation, go to a restaurant. It doesn't have to be extravagant. It can also be extravagant. Live life to the fullest. You know what I'm saying? That's one thing I'm working on. Back to the thing of like not celebrating much, because like you said, you didn't really go out too much besides birthdays with your family. Like I remember watching people like, how Applebee's used to give like balloons. I used to see like my friends come home with like an Applebee balloon, and I used to think Applebee's was bougie, bro, just because it was. And now that I'm older, I'm like, Applebee's is like fucking garbage, bro. So just like, so I realized from that I've like had a hard time like spending money or going out to celebrate, because like I never went on like you, I never went on vacation. I never went out to eat besides McDonald's or fast food. I never went out to eat with like my family or my mom. So I feel like that definitely stems from that. So I'm working on that, to celebrate more and give myself, grace, and not feel anxious for spending that money, because it's well earned. So, anyways, yeah, that's kind of how I would go about tracking my long-term ambitious goals. Is just setting checkpoints up with yourself. If you're hitting them, definitely go out and celebrate. You know what I'm saying?
Something that just crossed my mind also is apps. Like technology can be so helpful nowadays.
Yes.
I was just thinking about this because I don't do this enough. Like I don't use enough apps. I'm not a big, like, bro, as you know, I don't have social media. I'm not a big like tech person. I like read a lot. I don't know. I just am not super into like this digital world thing, which makes me sound like a total boomer, but it's just how I am. But some apps are so helpful, and I definitely need to get into more like apps that can help me with goal setting. For example, I used to have shit credit. My credit was terrible because of a family incident that occurred when I was 18, which was totally out of my control. But basically, I had like I had like a 620. It was something. I had like a 620 credit score or something. It's something bad. And
Bro, 620 is like average. You make it sound like you had like a 400 credit score. Anyway,
wait, is it average? Damn.
yeah,
Okay, my shit's way over.
like bro, 620 is like not good. Like it's not good, but it's like it's not that bad.
Okay, it's not a good starting place for when you're 18 years old. Let's just say that. So basically, when I was in college, there was nothing I could do about it. So I just had shit credit in college, and I couldn't do anything about it. I didn't have a credit card back then or anything. I didn't want one. I paid for my school with my own cash. Like I was trying to do everything a different way. But once I got a career and I got a credit card, I was like, man, I really want to like build my credit back up for the future, for like when I want to buy a house, things like that, and I need good credit, or if I ever need to get another car, whatever it is. And so I got this like credit app, and it gave me like specific things I could do to help my credit, right? Like when to pay off your credit card, like very specific things, like hitting a certain threshold and then paying it off, whatever it is. It gave me like these ways of doing it. And I did that, and I like followed these small guidelines of like, I think it was like I had to pay off my credit card on like the 12th of every month, and then like the 29th or something. It was something weird. And I did that for like a year straight, or I think a year and a half. And my credit score went from like 620 to like 720 in like a year and a half. And that was like a big thing for me, because I felt like this was like completely out of control, like for me. Because I know if it was my fault that my credit score was 620, I probably would have felt a little bit differently. But it felt like this cloud over my head where I felt like I was starting behind with something that wasn't my fault. and it was just difficult for me to like deal with in a way, even though like credit isn't a big, huge part of my life at that point. It just felt that way. It felt like this rainy cloud over me. So having this like app that just helped me do that for like a year and a half straight was great. And then now my credit just floats around the same area. I don't pay as much attention to it, but it got to the point where I needed it to be, and I've just kept it there since. But yeah, my point is technology is fucking incredible now. If there's an app or something similar to that that can be helpful for you, that's going to help you accomplish those goals and set marks for them, I think it's definitely great to use. Like I remember every time I would see my credit score go up, it would go up like 1 point or 2 points a month. And then every once in a while, some random thing would happen where I think it's like I'm hitting like a certain months in a row mark or something. And I would get like a boost of like 5, and I would just get hyped. It would just happen once a month, but I would just be like super excited. So it was definitely helpful. I think that if there is an app that's going to be helpful for someone, they should use it. So, scour the web, look up what other people are using. And if there's an app that you think is going to benefit you, go ahead and use it.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, no, I've realized that too, to the point where it's like I almost have too many apps on my phone, because it's like there's literally an app for everything. Like it's not a lie when someone says that. So it's like I know I have like budgeting apps, obviously money apps. I use like Duolingo to learn Italian. So like anyways, to get to the point, like there's definitely helpful apps out there. It doesn't have to just be for money. Like whatever you have in mind where you want to like reach a goal on, I'm 98% sure that an app has been created for it. So definitely use technology to your advantage, but at the same time I would say don't get too deep into that abyss, because otherwise you're on your phone 24/7, and that's not good for your mental health. And I'm saying this from firsthand account. Yeah, it's definitely best of both worlds with that.
Right. Double-edged sword for sure.
Double-edged sword. That's the word. But yeah, man. What was the other thing that we were talking about for patience?
So the big one was gratefulness. That's something we talked about last week too, which I think we both struggle with also, man. This shit. Okay, can I go in on gratefulness real quick, man?
Go in right now, bro.
It just feels like such a like buzzword, and it feels like it's such a difficult thing to actually grasp, because people will be like, "Oh, you need to be more grateful," and I feel like it's this thing that feels very like untouchable for me sometimes, where it's like hard to grasp this idea of like, how do I actually be grateful? Because I can say something, right? Like I can say words about what I'm grateful for, but how do I actually feel it? Like, how do I get to a point where I like actually feel grateful? Because there's things I am grateful for in life. Like, I'm really happy, sure, my family, we struggled financially, whatever, growing up, but my parents, I never grew up like not knowing that my parents love me. Like my parents are very loving people. I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful for the group of friends I had, the support network I had growing up. Really grateful for that. I'm really grateful I had an opportunity to pay for my college on my own in a very creative way. Like there's so many things in life I'm grateful for, but how do I actually feel that gratefulness? Like that's really difficult, man. And I feel like one of the only ways is like people talk about, I feel like I've heard two things. I don't know about you, but I've always heard two things, which is one, like a gratefulness journal, basically, where like every night you write what you're grateful for. No offense to all the people who do that, but that just sounds like time consuming and kind of whack. Like I'm just gonna, like, it's difficult just to be like, oh, I'm gonna spend 10 minutes just writing shit down that I'm grateful for. And then the other one is like saying it. So you're basically either writing down or saying what you're grateful for every day. I mean, maybe I should just try it and do it, but it just sounds like I'm just saying things. Like, how do I actually feel it? I don't know. Do you have an answer to that? Like, I don't know how you can just like feel grateful. Is that the only way?
I think it's different for everyone, if I'm going to be honest with you. Like, and not to like with feeling grateful, like people feel it and go about it in different ways, as with everything in life. Like to me, like maybe I sound like an ass, but like the gratefulness journal sounds kind of cheesy to me. Kind of you know what I'm saying? So it's like, don't get me wrong, I journal, but I don't like open my journal every day for 10 minutes, just randomly write. Like I can see how that worked for other people, but for whatever reason, maybe I'm just like wired weird. But like it just sounds weird and cheesy, and just like I don't want to do that.
Like, bro, imagine you just have like a really romantic night with your girlfriend or something. You're like, oh wait, hold up, babe, real quick. Let me like write my journal. Let me write my 10 things I'm grateful for. Like, I don't know, it's just difficult. Or like, oh, I just went out partying with my friends. I get home, I'm fucking like, I'm still tipsy, and I'm like, oh shit, I gotta write in my gratefulness journal. Like, I don't know, it's just like a difficult thing to be like it's completely different than other things I can do before night that I feel like are really helpful for me. Like, for example, I really like to read before I go to bed for 30 minutes because that's something like I actually enjoy. but like, let me just write in my journal for 10. I don't know, man. It's cheesy.
No, I agree. I'm happy it's not just me that feels this way. Like I think journaling, like I journal like my day or what's like if I have a lot of anxiety about whatever or just like my day, I journal that. But just to like sit down for 10 minutes and just like write what I'm grateful for. Not saying I'm not grateful for a ton of things, and I'm very grateful. It just sounds cheesy. Anyways, to get to the point, what I've realized how I can feel grateful is one thing is just living in the present, bro. If I live in the present and I just look around me, I can see like so many things I'm grateful for. And I honestly really bring it down to like bare bones shit, where it's like, oh, I have money. Oh, I have a roof over my head. And this might even sound cheesy, but it's just like, even just like my own crib, like, and I'm able to like design it the way I want. I'm grateful for that because once upon a time, a few years ago, I was like yearning for that. I wanted that so badly, and now it's fucking here. You know what I mean? I have my own crib. It's like my own space. I feel like amazing in here. It's like sometimes I'm like Kobe, my dog. It's like I used to want a dog my whole entire life. Now I finally have a dope dog. So just like I just literally live in the present, and I can look around, and that's like my live gratefulness journey. Journal in my head where I can just like look around and I'm just like seeing so many things from past me would be like so happy that I have that now. And I can just break it down to the bare bone. Like you said, like, sure, I grew up with a single mother, but like you said, she's over the top. Like she actually loves me. Like some people don't have that, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like, just for me, it's just like living in the present or just like meditating where I can feel the most grateful.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm actually happy you brought this up because I feel like I have a way of showing gratefulness that is kind of like you. It seems a bit unconventional. And I think the difference that we're talking about here is like, it's like actions versus feelings, right? Because for example, like like we've already mentioned before, like growing up in our childhood, like I grew up in a tough socioeconomic situation, I guess you could say. And so a lot of my friends were in similar situations, friends from school, friends from my church, whatever it was. And so now my work is I've had people in my life who struggle with mental health and also addiction and things like that too. And now my job and my career that I've specifically chosen over other higher paying jobs is I do a job where I do social work for psychiatric patients. And it's something I'm really passionate about. And I feel like that's a way of me like giving back to people who are in situations that I feel like I might have been in the past, right? Like I'm specifically choosing a career where I dedicate 8 hours of my day towards helping people who are struggling with mental health, struggling with poverty. And I feel like in a way that's gratefulness for me. Like I'm so grateful for where I am now. And now I have the opportunity to help people. So let me take this regardless of me making less money than I could be doing other things. So that's incredible. Like, I feel like that's a way of like me having gratefulness that I'm putting into action. But regardless of that, I don't know that I like feel grateful. I feel like that's the main thing I'm talking about. Is like, how do I feel that? It's funny though, because we're both ending on the grateful journal, right? And yet we both struggle with feeling grateful and we've never actually given it a shot. Bro, would you be willing to do this with me? Like fuck 10 minutes, but it could even just be one thing. Like what if you and I for 1 week, and then on our next pod, we could talk about whether or not it actually made a difference. Like what if we both did a gratefulness journal, for 1 week where you and I just one thing. It doesn't have to be 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be 10 things. What if you and I just wrote one thing we're both grateful for every day? Would you be down? And then we'll report on it next week. And if it's cheesy as fuck, we can literally just come in next week and be like, yo, that shit was cheesy as fuck and it didn't do shit.
I'm down.
Why don't we find out?
I'm down, but let's do 5. I feel like 1's easy. You can bullshit. You can even bullshit 1. But 5, it's like, it's a little bit. I was even going to say 10, but I'm like, all right, let's chill. Let's go 5.
All right, let's do 5. Fuck it. I'm down.
Let's be real.
1 week.
Let's be real. 1 is so easy to bullshit. So it's like, let's make it slightly challenging, just slightly. 5 a day. And let's do this. You can't say the same thing.
Bro. Okay. That's tough.
Yeah, it's tough. That's what I'm saying. But I feel like it'll help both of us. And bro, let's be real. Maybe it's cheesy. You're right. Maybe it's whack. It could be. And if it is, we'll call it out. Or call it as it is. But I feel like it's slightly challenging, but it also can be very beneficial.
If it actually works, that would be crazy because we were just talking so much shit about it.
I know, right?
Let's actually find out, man. I'm down. Let's try it for 1 week and we'll report on the results. We'll let everybody know. All the listeners who have thought about doing this and are like, fuck that, that's some corny ass shit. I'm not going to do that. we're gonna do the experiment for you, and we will report next week and let you know if this shit actually works.
I'm down. I can already feel the cheese, bro. It's cheesy as fuck.
Okay, wait, there was one other thing I want to talk about because you actually brought it up, which was like being in the moment. Like you said, that's a way of you being grateful. Like, I guess you could also put it as like being mindful, maybe. How do you work on that? Like, how do you become present?
How do you become present, bro? Just like your senses, bro. I struggle. I
Your
struggle with this shit.
senses.
I struggle with this shit a lot, especially with like. I'm not gonna lie. Like back to the point of like you're not on social media. Like there's pros and cons to that. I think for me, like I almost have to be like I have to be on social media for my job. Um, but I don't know. It just I've realized a lot. It's affected my mental health for many different reasons. Anyways, it's a whole different podcast. But whenever I am feeling just like anxious or I want to be grateful, I'm worried, I'm impatient, so anxiety comes in. I just like take it. I just try to go to like the roots of shit. I just like think of like, how do I feel right now? Like, what am I feeling? Like, I feel like my feet on the floor. I feel like my fingers touching my other finger. I don't. This might talking about cheese. This might sound cheesy. I'm just like, what do I currently smell? I'm like, oh, look at Kobe. So I'm like, and then I just try to like take in my surroundings because like I feel like it's very easy to overlook the present because there's so much going on in your head. But if you just like for a moment just step outside of your head and just slow down, and I'm also talking to myself than anyone else. If you just slow down for a fucking moment and just look around you, there's many reasons to be grateful, and so anyways, that's kind of how I kind of go about that.
So is it kind of like a check-in where it's almost like you've been like going about shit, you kind of feel caught up in whatever's going on, the future, the past, like social media, digital shit, and you kind of are doing like a check-in with yourself where you're like, oh, yeah. I'm here. This is what I feel. This is what I smell. This is what I take. Like you're kind of like checking in with yourself to remind yourself that you're like in a certain place, I guess.
Yeah, because like you said the digital world. Let's be real. It's a different world. It's a different dimension. Not to get like too like crazy talk, but it's like when you're like on scrolling on Instagram and then you're on like you're in that world. You're not like in the physical world, if that makes any fucking sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Like even if you're physically present in a certain place, your mind is completely your full attention is on your phone. Like especially the way things are built now, like psychologically, like images and videos are created to be like addictive and like
exactly
you're like completely caught up in this other world, even if it's just on this small little phone in front of you. You're more present inside of that digital world rather than feel present.
I'm more present inside the phone than outside, and it's very easy to compare yourself to others, like especially on Instagram. I know this is a very popular topic where it's like I'll see someone successful younger than me and I'm like, wow, I'm such a failure because this person is this many years younger than me, but they've already reached what I haven't reached yet, or they've reached my goal. The typical like 25-year-old with a Lamborghini or whatever it may be. And it's like, okay, if he's 25 and he's reached there or he's past, he's not better than me, but that means I'm a failure. And then I just go down this rabbit hole, then anxiety seeps in. And anyways, we just go down this very dark rabbit hole.
Really quick, can I say something?
Go for it, bro.
Just for anyone who's listening that needs to hear this, it's probably a little bit like easier for me to live by this because I don't have social media. But I always say this: don't compare your game tape to someone else's highlights. For people who are watching sports, like everybody knows there's always a player that looks so good on highlight reels and stuff, but their actual game is like pretty bad. Like Gerald Green, like he like wins dunk on, he's like windmills in games and stuff, but he's just like a bench player. But it's like Instagram is always someone's highlights of their life, so you never know what they're dealing with outside of that. But it's so easy to compare yourself to someone's highlights, and you're comparing your game tape, which is like full tape. So for anyone who needs to hear that, I just always like to remind myself of that. Whenever I feel like a little bit envious or things like that, I always just say I can't compare my game tape to someone else's highlights because I have no idea what they're dealing with in real life, and it's probably a lot more difficult than I think. But anyways,
that's 100, bro. Thank you for sharing that. That's 100% true. And yeah, like everyone deals with anxiety and things you don't see behind closed doors, and so it's very easy. Only you know like 100% of your life and what you're going through, and that's why it's so easy for you to think that it's just you and everyone else is living this dope ass high life, and on vacations or whatever. Um, and yeah, so I've just worked on like disconnecting myself from that and just realizing that it's like, and a lot of times, let's be real, on Instagram, it's false. It's just a flex. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, um, back to the point of, yeah, so I just realized, so I like, when I snap out of it, that digital world or whatever, then I just try to like remind myself what I'm grateful for, that I'm on track, like it could be so much more worse or whatever. And then just try to be grateful for what I currently have and realize that it's their highlights. I shouldn't be worried about it. And you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I come back to like the present and just reduce my anxiety to some extent.
I actually like that you talked about like the sensory side of things, even though it honestly did sound a little cheesy, bro. I really like that.
No, Italians, we love our cheese.
No, I actually really like that you brought that up because it reminds me of something I do that I actually think does make me feel more present, but I didn't notice it until you told me that. Which is, I know you know that I do this. I love doing this, which is I like going on walks. It's really hard for me in the winter, but I still do it because like my neighborhood's very walkable, and I prefer to like walk to restaurants or bars or like the grocery store when I can. It's difficult in Portland. It's fucking raining all the time, but still, I love going on walks. And in the springtime, in the summertime especially, like I go on like 3 walks a day. But something I do when I'm walking is, people never do this, but I swear, for people listening, try this today if you're ever outside, is to look up. I know that sounds really weird, but when you look up, like if you're in the city or if you're in like somewhere in nature, when you look up, like just straight up, it's so beautiful usually. Like the sky, the trees, the buildings, everything looks so different when you look at things vertically. Like our perspective is always so horizontal. I know this sounds weird, but I swear.
Bro, it's not weird.
It looks gorgeous, but not only that, it looks like a different perspective. Like the perspective is just something you're not used to. Like you don't look at things vertically normally. So when you do that, it like kind of brings you in this weird place where you feel very present. And I love doing it when I'm on walks because there's just something about trees. Like when I'm walking through the trees, it's just like when you look up, it's just fucking gorgeous. But it also works in the city, especially when you're around like tall buildings. You just look up and your perspective completely changes. And when you do that, it's very like reminding. Like it reminds you, you're like, oh, I'm here. Like I'm doing this. It feels like very like, I feel very mindful and present when I'm doing that. So if whoever's listening, next time you're on a walk, just look straight up. I swear. It's great.
Bro, I'm so happy you said that because I do that too. And what I like to do, is I like to think like beyond up, if that makes any sense. So like I look at the tree line, then there's the sky, then there's space, then there's other planets. Maybe I'm getting too trippy and too cheesy, but whatever. We're gonna layer on the cheese today. And then I realize how small I am. And I'm just like, I think I have all these problems that are like world changing. In my world, they're world changing. But in the grand scheme of things, they're not shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it makes me feel smaller, which is a good thing. It's like humbling, and it's like, okay, my problems aren't as crazy as I think they are in the grand scheme of things. So I 100% agree with you. Like, especially like looking up at like skyscrapers, it's like, this thing is huge. It could crush me, like no sweat. And yeah, so I'm so happy you brought that up because I do think that's very like almost therapeutic to do that. And that's awesome, bro.
It's funny how like random little things stick with you through life that you wouldn't expect. Like the only reason I do that thing is because I was at a summer camp once and we were on a hike. And I remember we were in this really gorgeous part of the woods where there was like this river and this little like log, like it was just a log thrown over the river that we were supposed to cross. And I was like pretty young. I think I was in like 8th grade or something. I just thought it was like so beautiful. I remember now, it was the summer going into my freshman year. And I just thought the whole thing was so beautiful. I was like, man, this place is gorgeous. I was just like talking up the whole thing. I was like, oh, I love this, like this hike, everything. I was hyped. And then my team leader for my summer camp, he was like, hey man, if you want to see something really beautiful, look up. And I was like, okay. And I looked up, and it was just like gorgeous. Like the clouds were out, but the like trees were glistening in the sun. Everything was just so beautiful. He was like, yeah, man, when we're walking, like every so often, just like look up. Trust me, bro. I was like, okay. And then I just started doing that like at random times in my life. I remember like I'd be anywhere in the city with my friends, and sometimes I would just look up. But yeah, it's funny how like little small things just kind of stick with you. I like the way you brought up about the universe though. I really do think that like and we've talked about this before earlier in the pod, it's just like when you take a step back, like I would encourage anyone who has a really big goal, who's struggling and feeling impatient like we were, to like take a step back and actually look at your current progress. Because as long as you are working towards something and putting in actual effort, usually you're further along than you actually think you are. Like, for example, I get really impatient because I really want to, like, just speaking career wise right now, really quickly for people who want to get to know me more, like my big goal in life right now is I want to be either like the head of a psych hospital, or like one of the main leaders of one, or one of the main leaders or head of the psych department in like a major hospital system, or like social services, mental health, whatever, some division that's like really big. That goal is ridiculous. Like that shit's going to take me so long to do, and I get really impatient. But when I think about it, I started working in mental health 3 years ago. I got, I got 3 promotions at my first hospital within a 1.5 year period, or actually 2 year, like almost 2 year period. I got 3 promotions. Then I got a ridiculous job offer from the best hospital in Oregon, like after that last promotion, like probably 6 or 7 months after that last promotion. Now I'm at a job that's way better than my previous one. Like when I take a step back, in 3 years, I have made way more progress than I ever thought I would. Next year, I'm applying for my MBA program. Like I've made so much progress, but sometimes I'm just like, man, I don't have the things I want. Like I want to have a higher impact on the mental health world. I want to be someone who can like make actual change. I get really frustrated with the system because I feel like a lot of leaders in Oregon in the mental health world are just very complacent, or just complain about how the government doesn't do enough. They make a lot of excuses. I really feel like, I mean, this is honestly like most fields in America, I feel like, or areas that like need help. Like they just need more like young people who are more creative. Like I feel the same thing about politics, right? Like I'm just like, man, why can't we just get all these old people out of here? Like we need people who are more creative, who are going to bring like problem solving. Like it always just feels like complacency. And I feel the same way about like mental health in Oregon, where I'm just like, we need like young people to come in, and people who understand the system though, of course, but we need people who like want to make change. We need people who are going to make like big decisions and not just be complacent and safe. And I just struggle with like the fact that I can't do those things right now. But like I said, when I do look back at the past 3 years, I've made so much progress, and I should be so happy and grateful for those things. So, you know, if you have a big goal and you get frustrated with where you're at, I really encourage you to take a step backwards. Not take a step backwards. Take a step back, like just from the whole idea of where you want to be, and look at how you've progressed. I would not be shocked if you have accomplished a lot in the past few years and you're actually further along than you think.
I 100% second that, bro. Because like we think, like I said, day in and day out, it's just so hard to like see the progress. But like one thing I've heard a lot is just like, if you win more days, let's be real, you can't win every day. Everyone has bad days. But if you win more days in the week, that means you win the week. If you win more weeks in the month, that means you win the month. If you win more months in the year, that means you win the year. You kind of get where I'm going with this. So just like, it just focus, if you can like break it down to like just win the day, you're going to achieve where you want to go. And you just have to be, that's why like discipline and consistency is like so important. It's things we all struggle with, it's things I've struggled with, it's things I still struggle with. And I don't think, let's be real, I don't think you ever completely master it. Again, it's just as long as you're majority of the time being disciplined or consistent, that you're gonna get there. And like you said, taking a step back and just kind of looking behind you and seeing how far up the mountain you actually are. Like maybe you're not at the peak, but you look behind you, you're like, damn, I came all that way, holy shit. And so just like slowly but surely you're climbing Mount Everest or whatever it may be. I know I feel that way. I definitely feel like I'm not doing as well as I actually am, but when I look behind, I'm like, damn, I've come a long way, even just since moving to Dallas. And I've only been here a year and a half, my guy, and just like, shit, I've done a lot in a year and a half. It doesn't feel like it, but when I look behind me, I'm like, damn, it's a decent amount of progress.
Bro, you have. We've been keeping up with each other this whole time, so it's been crazy to see your growth since you moved to Dallas. Like, it's been a whirlwind for both of us for the past couple of years, but I mean, you got out of a tough situation in Minneapolis. You started a new life. Like, going to a new city is tough. Like, that's so hard. I know when I moved to Portland, and Portland's like close to Seattle. which is where I moved from. But even then, like when I moved to a new city, it was so difficult. You moved like way across the country, and I mean, it's been really impressive to see you grow in a completely new city.
Yeah, no, it's definitely tough, but I recommend to anyone listening. I totally recommend it. If that's something you want to do, of course. Like I think moving to a new city is just it's life changing, bro. It's
Bro, we
not
should
even
talk about that on another pod because honestly, like moving to a new city, I feel like you really figure out like who you are. I figure out
100. Yeah,
you grow up really fast because when you have like the comfort of like your friend network,
yes,
you have like you're so comfortable in this city, it's really easy to be complacent. But it's not just complacency about the things we were just talking about. It's more so about like growth, right? Like individual growth, understanding yourself. Like you get really comfortable, and when you move to a new city, you don't have those safety nets, and you have to like grow up really fast, and you have to learn about who you are. It's a really insightful journey. I think anybody who, I mean, I think it's always cool when people are like, oh, I've lived in this city my whole life, I was born here, I grew up here. But like realistically, for most people at some point in life, you have to move. So I think it's such a cool experience. It's been such a journey for me. I feel like I've grown up a lot. We should definitely get into that on a pod. If you guys want to hear that, just let us know. We can definitely go into this on a pod. We can do like a quick guide on like things to do, how to navigate moving to a new city, like great ways of making new friends, things like that, whatever.
bro. Let's transition this into the next pod then. The next podcast. Let's talk about moving to the new city and the benefits. Do we have anything else for this podcast?
Nah, man, I think we're good. Next podcast,
bro. I think it's the perfect
life transitions, like dealing with change, life transitions, new cities, all that stuff. I'd be so down to go into that. Okay, so let's just finish this up, man. It was such a good pod. Everybody, like and subscribe. We also have a sports podcast we do. You can check that out too. It's called NGTC Sports. It's mostly just small clips about whatever is happening in sports, current events, and then we're going to be doing this pod every week. Do you have anything you want to say, Manny?
Yeah, to Hudson's point, we have a little side podcast we mostly just do for fun, highlighting sports news. Recently, it's been NFL news, NBA, all that type of stuff. It's on YouTube, so check it out on NGTC Sports. So definitely check that out. We're gonna be covering the Niners and Eagles and Chiefs and Bengals later today. I think if you're into sports, I definitely say you should check that out. But thanks for tuning in and checking the podcast out with us. Yeah.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.
Peace.